Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for showing up to our September Lunch and Learn. I'd like to give thanks to Guy for organizing all this, putting it together. He's outside manning the store right now, so he can't be in here. I want to introduce Matt and Jake from Milwaukee. They're going to talk about dust extraction for the new silica standard coming up. When it's over, you can ask me. I'm Chris. I'm the outside sales guy here. Zach, he's my inside support and counter help. And Guy's the store manager. You can come to any of us, ask us any questions you want, and I'll turn it over to these gentlemen.
Awesome. How's everyone doing? Pretty good? Yeah? Enjoying a good lunch? Yep. I'm going to try not to bore you too much today. Just kind of, the goal of today is to really inform you of what's coming in September. I know a lot of you guys have probably heard of OSHA's new silica ruling that's coming down the pipe here pretty quick. So the goal of today is just to inform you a little bit about what exactly it is, what OSHA is looking for, and then how Milwaukee's compliant. We got a lot of cool solutions up here that we're going to walk through and give you guys a rundown on. And you guys are using these tools probably a hell of a lot more than we are, so you might even teach us something. But we're going to take a lot of this outside then and do some hands-on demos and show you exactly how this product works. So just a quick introduction. Like he said, I'm Matt. I work with all the distributors in St. Louis, Columbia area, and then Jackson does kind of the same thing. So we're a team here. And might have seen some of you guys on some calls and stuff in the past. But does anybody know much about what's coming in September with the new silica launch? Anybody want to give me any information? That's what I'm here to do, right? I guess.
We cut concrete, so we're basically going to have to be wearing half-face respirators.
Sure.
Every day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Got to get doctors checked out.
Yep. The concrete cutting, tuck pointers, even your MEP trades, general contractors, everybody's really affected by this. So what you're going to see today is just a run through of some of the products that we have, and then we're going to explain to you the different ways that we're compliant. So you can jump through these, Jack, real quick. So in June 23rd is what we were all gearing up for in the power tool industry on the new silica ruling. And they actually pushed it back because there's a lot of details and things and finite details that weren't worked out yet. So any rotary hammer drilling, cutting, grinding, you name it, chipping is going to have to be dustless moving forward starting September 23rd. So there's multiple different ways to be compliant. I know he mentioned, wearing a respirator and things like that to guard yourself from the dust. But we're going to speak to today the dust control methods that we offer for all of the power tools that you're using in the field. So jump to the next one. There's going to be a lot of questions, and hopefully I can answer most of them to the best of my ability. We've done a lot of these, but everybody knows what silica is. It's the dust that's put off by drywall, concrete cutting, drilling, things like that. They're really kind of calling it almost the new asbestos. There's a big push on silicosis and what can result over inhaling a lot of silica dust over time. So the method behind this is to really protect you guys because you're the ones out there performing these applications, and we're going to show you how you do that. So what does it say? So as I said, any rotary hammer drilling, cutting, chipping, grinding, you name it, is going to have to be controlled dust-wise. So you can wear a respirator, like you were saying. There's wet methods, which I'm sure you guys are probably using too. Dust control methods. You can combine all of them to make it, the most safe way as possible. But what you're going to see in front of you are, dust extractors, HEPA vac kits, universal HEPA vac kits, and I'm going to speak to how these are compliant. So the easiest way to meet that dust regulation coming in September is to be Table 1 compliant. Has anybody heard that? Everyone's saying be Table 1. So what does that mean? That means that your dust control method, or something like this or a vacuum, has a filter cleaning mechanism on the inside of it. So that way you're not coming into constant contact with that silica. The next way is objective data. So Milwaukee, believe it or not, has been really working to control silica dust for years. We've had shrouds, hammer vac attachments like this that have been on the marketplace that a lot of you guys may be using to control dust, because this might not have been required by OSHA years back, but certain jobs, I'm sure maybe some of you have worked on, have required dust control methods. So we've had these solutions already. So these are not Table 1 compliant, but what they are is objective data compliant. So at the end of this, I'll go to our website. We've done everything down to the room size, the hole size, the amount of holes you can drill, the amount of times you empty the cartridge, you name it. We've done all the testing for you from a manufacturer's standpoint to show that you're compliant regardless of what you're doing. So something like this is going to be objective data compliant. It's not self-cleaning because it's a self-contained mechanism that you attach onto your existing rotary hammers. But I'll jump into these here in a second. And then the last method of dust control would be self-monitored. So if you were drilling a bunch of holes or in concrete and driving some anchors, you'd have to have somebody with a silica meter monitoring how much dust you're coming into contact with. So the hot number out there is 50 UG, which is how they're measuring how much dust you're physically coming into contact with. And that 50 UG limit, if you get to that limit, then you have to physically stop what you're doing, because you can't come into contact with any more silica per OSHA's new standard. So you would have to if you're not going to use a dust control method or a wet method or wear a respirator, you'd have to have somebody standing next to you with a meter testing how much dust that you're coming into contact with to make sure you don't go over that limit. Big thing for us is, OSHA's got a huge territory to cover, and we've asked them multiple questions on how they're really going to police this. What we're kind of being told, don't take this to the bank, but what we're being told is, this is a reactionary industry. They know that. This might even get pushed back again. We don't know yet. But if they see dust on a job site and there's concrete present, they're going to look for some sort of dust control method, whether it be a water method, a dust control method like you see up here, shrouds, or vacuums, things like that. If you're not doing that, they're going to make sure that you're taking the proper steps to become compliant. It's going to be more of a slap on the wrist thing is what we're told starting off. A lot of your bigger job sites, we're also being told that, if they see dust, they're going to go get their testing equipment, come back to you and say, hey, replicate what you were doing. Well, off the record, what are you going to do? You're not going to do exactly what you were doing to put off that amount of dust, because then they're probably going to ding you, right? No. So the first fine, the first time that they actually physically ding you for, putting off an amount of dust or silica, we've heard is about $10,000. Is that pretty consistent with what you guys are hearing? So if you get caught again, or they slap you on the wrist again, we've heard it's anywhere from $65,000 to $100,000. So this is a big deal, right? You guys are all probably thinking Milwaukee's in cohorts with OSHA so we can sell more dust equipment, right? No, but we've been working with them to really understand what the ruling is so that we know how to protect you guys and to make sure that you're not getting dinged with $10,000 and $65,000, $100,000 fines. So that way if you're using a Milwaukee dust control product, you're good to go. So Table 1, objective data, and self-monitored, those are the three really ways you can be compliant under OSHA's new standard, and that's what we're really focusing on from our product line up here. So, yep.
So is there really no minimum unless you have to have somebody with a meter to understand that? I mean, because sometimes there's very minuscule.
Sure.
If you're going in and drilling one base plate to frame a wall in, I mean, it's the same standards unless you have a meter to.
Right. I mean,
or what are we talking about?
that's a really good question. So that 50 UG number I said is the amount that OSHA's really looking at.
Right.
So if they come out and test and they've tested that there's more dust in the air than that 50 UG amount, and you're not taking the proper steps to control that dust, yeah, then that's when they're gonna act. But if you're drilling a couple holes, chances are you're probably covered. This is for cutting or grinding tuck pointers.
I don't have a good sense of what 50 UGs is, I guess.
It's like it's the way they're measuring the air clarity.
Yeah, the particles in the air, but
Yep.
I'm saying as a layperson, as there a way I can identify if I'm gonna be messing with that threshold or not without a meter? I don't know.
Right. So what I'm saying is if you're using some sort of Milwaukee dust control method, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Now, if you aren't, then that's when you're going to have a testing meter like you're saying. Yep.
Okay.
That would be the only way to kind of see if you're at that threshold. Or the wet method as well. So, yep. So what tools does this affect that really pertain to us and to you? So first is going to be SDS plus drilling, which is probably the majority of what you guys are doing, of those of you that are in here. Next is going to be SDS max, drilling, chipping, dry coring, those types of things. And the last piece is going to be grinding. So if I'm using a grinder and I'm grinding concrete, I'm going to have some sort of shroud over my grinder hooked up to a vacuum or a dust extractor like this to make sure that I'm collecting that dust. So, jump into the next one. Jumped in. All right, so I talked about Table 1 compliance, objective data compliance, and then self-monitoring compliance. Where do our products really kind of fall into those different lineups? So remember, Table 1 compliance, you have to have a filter cleaning mechanism on your vacuums. That thing has to be cleaning itself, so that way you're not coming into contact with silica. So the idea there is, any of these products that you see here, the vacuum or the dust extractor, the hollow core bits, the chipping shrouds, the grinding shrouds, those are all going to be hooked up to this. Those are going to be Table 1 compliant Milwaukee products. Any of your hammer vacs on your cordless rotary hammers or your universal hammer vac or something like this on a cordless grinder, you're going to be objective data compliant. And that's where if OSHA is going to say, pop onto a job site and say, maybe you're not putting off a lot of dust, but they're checking to see if you're compliant, that's where you would reference our matrix and say, hey, Milwaukee's got the data right here. All of their products are compliant. This shows and this proves everything. So if they ever do ask you, you have that information that we've provided you. It's on our website, which I'll show you at the end. Easily available that you guys can access. So what we're being told from OSHA, if you have some sort of dust control method and you're doing any of these applications, that's what they're really looking for. So if they see a red dust control method out there, they know most likely that you're compliant. There might be that one guy that's going to want to test it just to enforce his, power or whatever. But stand very confident that you're 100% compliant across Milwaukee solutions. So this is just a product lineup of your different applications. So SDS Plus, SDS Max, and your grinders. Jump to the next one. One more time. Keep going through these here. There you go. So I would say 95% of the industry is going to be using the HEPA or HAMAVAC attachments or the universal attachments up here. A lot of the contractors that we're working with might stock a couple of these because this is going to be for your larger applications like your SDS Max drilling. Any sort of SDS Max drilling or cutting, anything over an inch really, you're going to have some sort of big dust extractor like this. So there's multiple methods that I can show you for an SDS Max hammer that would make you compliant. So I would turn on this vacuum. We have this stinger attachment. It's pretty much just a big suction cup with the bristles. And I put this on the wall over whatever area I'm drilling, or I can put it on the ground, and this suction cups to the material or the concrete or whatever I'm working on when I turn on that vacuum. And then I run my carbide through the center of here, and then as I'm drilling, that dust is getting sucked up through this shroud into the vacuum. So a lot of you guys are probably like, okay, that's a pretty cool solution. How does that differ from your hollow bits? Which that's the only thing I don't have today because they're being demoed. But we make an SDS. You can jump to the next one. It's probably on there. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There you go, right there. So we make a SDS bit that looks just like this, but it's going to be hollow on the inside of it. So it's going to have 2 holes on the side, 2 holes on the front. And as you're drilling your holes, it's actually sucking the silica through the center of that bit. That bit actually hooks onto this hose from the side, and you just plug the bit into your hammer. That's the easiest way to really use your dust extractor units like this. Hilti's had them out there for a while. We also have them now as well. But it's a hollow SDS bit. It's got holes in it, and it's really sucking the silica through the center of the bit into the vacuum. But those bits can cost you anywhere from $100 to $150 a piece. So for you guys that are out there using a bunch of carbide, maybe you have a bunch on the shelf already, you can use all your existing SDS bits with this attachment. So you don't have to buy a bunch of those hollow bits if you don't want to. So this is just one of your different options. Jump to the next. So right there, on the second line right there, you'll see the SDS Plus vacuum bit and the SDS Max vacuum bit. Looks just like your typical piece of carbide, but it's hollow through the center, and then it's got that little attachment that fits right onto your hose here. So when I'm drilling, it's sucking all the silica right through the center of that bit. So the first question on that is, hey, you got a hollow SDS bit, how does it last up? It actually holds up better than our current carbide because there's less friction on the bit because we only have teeth on the very end of the bit. So if I'm drilling a bunch of holes with this SDS Max bit, that dust that it's pulling out causes a lot of friction on the bit and it will eventually wear it out. You don't have that when you have a dustless bit because it's sucking it all through the center of it. So, and it is a 4-cutter bit, so if you encounter rebar, it's not going to chew up your bit and things like that. So, the next. So everyone says, okay, well this is eventually going to fill up when I'm drilling or grinding or cutting, anything like that. How do I remove the silica? Because that's the big thing. We don't want to come into contact with it, right? I just pull these 2 vacs here. It's got a bag on the inside, and then we also have zipper bags that are sold with it. You just take that filter bag out, drop it in a zipper bag, zip it up, toss it in the trash. So we've asked OSHA and we said, hey, you know, it's great that we're collecting all this dust and then we're disposing of it, but what's a proper method for disposal? I'm sure some of you guys have asked that too. And they said that's a DNR problem. So we're still, yeah, right. So we're still looking for a good answer there. But what we've been told is you can toss it in the trash. You can throw it in the dumpster as long as it's not, or as long as it's sealed. To go back to you there, if you're using a wet method while you're cutting, you know, that collects all the dust and it turns it into a slurry. So you're going to have to dispose of that slurry as well. So yeah, you're controlling the dust when you're drilling or you're cutting or you're grinding, but what happens to that slurry when it dries the next day? Turns right back into dust. So if you are using a wet method, then at the end of the day or whenever you're done, you're going to have to collect all that slurry and dispose of that the same way that you are with these bags. That's why a dust control method like this is really preferred by OSHA, because you don't have to take multiple steps to make sure you're using the proper cleanup. So I passed a guy this morning they're doing a bunch of bridge work over by my house, and he was just putting off all kinds of dust, and I'm thinking he's probably trying to get this job done before September. So no, but that's your SDS Max. You can use this with an SDS Plus bit. So if you don't want to mess around with any of the hammer vacs or any of the self-contained units over here, we make this attachment here. It's a 5261DE. And what this does is this fits on the end of this hose, and then it's got a handle that clamps onto the side of any manufacturer's rotary hammers. So it'll go on a Makita, it'll go on a Bosch, it'll go on a Milwaukee, a DeWalt, you name it. We're the only company to have a universal attachment like this. So that's big, because you're not going to have to buy that brand's unit. So I can attach this right to the side of a rotary hammer, like you got right here. It's going to look kind of like this, and then you run your bit through these bristles, and it's going to suck the silica through the center of this and into the vacuum. So you can use SDS Plus on this as well. Same thing with grinders. All my grinding shrouds or my cutting shrouds, We have attachments to hook this up onto the vacuum too. So same type of deal there with your suction. But, so jump into the next one. You know, you guys have a bunch of cordless rotary hammers? Any of you out there? What brands, if you don't mind me asking? Milwaukee? DeWalt? Probably love that DeWalt one, don't you? Yeah. So with your DeWalt or your Milwaukee, or say you had a Bosch, you would have to, on their SDS Max or their corded units, you would have to buy a full-scale vacuum like this, because any of your corded hammers that are out there, there's no really solution like one of these to get you dustless. You'd have to jump up into like a $600 vacuum or something like this. So Milwaukee was kind of forward thinking, and what we did was launch the M12 universal attachment. So this will fit on any corded or cordless and any brand rotary hammer that's out there. And it'll attach to the front. It's sold with 3 different handles, so it'll fit on anything that's SDS Plus. And this runs off its own little battery, just over there. We can show you outside. But you just turn this unit on here on the back, and it runs off its own little power source, and it's going to continue sucking the silica through the little bristles here. So if you got a bunch of DeWalt corded hammers or some Bosch corded hammers or Makita corded hammers, you can buy this unit. It's going to cost you $160, $170 as compared with batteries, as compared to something like this that might cost you, $500, $600. And we're seeing a lot of companies actually go to these because 95% of what they're doing is SDS Plus. So.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
What about cutting hardy boards? I don't see a equipment up there for cutting with 7 1/4 saw.
That's a really good question. I've got it before. Something that we're kind of looking into that we haven't really gotten much information back from OSHA. Same with drywall, because you're getting silica dust from drywall as well. So you're talking even shrouds and things for like drywall cutout tools and saws for cutting your hardy board. So some of those things are still unknown even to the power tool manufacturers, because we're kind of leaning on OSHA to get those answers. The big push for this launch and what we're being told is concrete. And I'm thinking they're going to address these other things kind of down the road, but we don't know. So that's something I'd have to follow up on you for. So what are you guys hearing?
Well, according to the pamphlets that we read, that it states on there specifically hardy board. So I was just wondering, because I'm very, very familiar with the hardy board.
Right.
And, a lot of hardy board requirements require an inch gap above window sills. So
Okay.
the only way to get a smooth cut is by using a skill saw, which when you're doing it in a commercial industry, you're causing a lot of dust. And, that's where OSHA's going to hit you the most at, is on a commercial
Sure.
job site. So
Yeah.
that's what the question is.
Yeah. As far as I know, there's no sort of attachment for a 7 1/4 saw or any of your circular saws yet. That's across the industry. That's one that don't know much about. So I'd have to look into it for you. So, good question though. Jump to the next. Oh, no, we're good. So, I think we heard a few people are using Milwaukee hammers already, right? Hopefully, a lot of you. If you're using any of the current hammers that we're selling, we also sell the DE attachments that can come packed in. So instead of that M12 that runs on its own little battery, if you buy a 2712 or a 2715, it's as simple as just sliding it onto the front of it. And then that vacuum is going to run when this hammer's running, and it's going to run off the battery that's on the tool. So this provides you for about a 6-inch depth currently. If you're going anything longer than a 6-inch, that's when you're going to have to step up into a vacuum. But if you're drilling in a ceiling or anything like that, this retracts and expands as you drill. And it's the same type of technology here, to where these bristles are sucking the dust through the center of the unit. So obviously, this isn't as big as something like this. So when you get to capacity, this is eventually going to fill up. So what happens when I go and I dump this in the trash can? You get dust, right? That's why it's preferred to be table 1 on things like this, and we're working to get there. But we've done all the testing for you to show you that you're good. But they're saying, OSHA's saying for these self-contained units, they want you to empty this about every 15 holes-ish, because that's how much this will fill up. But these filters are good for 1,000 plus holes. So you don't need to replace these filters on the inside of this for, up to over 1,000 holes. But you're going to need to empty this unit because once it gets full, it's going to stop sucking. So that 15 is a very loose number just because it depends on the hole size and the amount of holes that you're drilling. But it's a pretty common number for what we're seeing out there. We've been kind of told that on your commercial job sites, like he had mentioned, it's kind of comical, but there's going to be dedicated dumping zones to where they're almost going to have an area that's, quadrant off or have plastic up to where you can go dispose of dust like this to make sure that you're squared away. So that's the main difference between this unit and that one. On the 8960, on the big dust extractor, we'll demo it out there and we'll give you some more information, but this actually has 2 filters on the inside of it. So the first filter is getting 99% of the dust, and the second filter gets you within 99.7% of dustless. And it's got a thumper in there, which actually cleans the filter out on its own. So that's why it's table 1, because it's self-cleaning. This doesn't have that sort of technology, so that's why this is not table 1. We are working to get there, we're just not there yet. So you can jump past these. Already covered that. Good there. So another thing too that we're kind of on the cutting edge of is, anybody do any rotary hammer chipping? A lot of demo, things like that. We make a chipping shroud. So first company to really do that, because you can't use something like this stinger attachment for a chipper because it's not big enough. So the little black shroud attachment you see there physically attaches to your vacuum, and then you run your chipping bit through the end of it. It does mess with your view a little bit, but it still gets you dustless in any sort of chipping mechanism or application that you're doing. So, next one. So, and then on these guys, we did talk about this stinger attachment, which I'll take off for you. We'll pass it around here if you guys want to see it. Then we'll take them outside. But a lot of third-party companies are making a bunch of these attachments for like dry coring or your bigger bits to run these things through to hook up to vacuums. This is just one that we make now. For us, you can get bigger shrouds like that through other companies, and I'm sure we have more coming, but this is just a solution that we have now. So keep going. And then just another reference on what your SDS Max bits and your Plus bits look like. So still fit in all your current hammers. They're just hollow on the inside and they hook right up to the vacuum. You're good. All right. And then the last piece is grinding. So we have a 4/5 inch grinding shroud and then up to a 7-inch grinding shroud. I did cover these a minute ago, but they just attach right onto the front of your vacuums. You hook, you take your existing guard off on your grinder and you put these on there, and then you turn the vacuum on, and when you engage the tool, that's when it will physically turn on the vacuum. So this will collect all that dust if you're doing any sort of surface grinding or anything like that. That's what these guys are for. One thing I do want to mention on this too is we kind of a little forward thinking. We know some of you might be using a bunch of corded hammers. I can plug this vacuum into an outlet, then I can plug a corded rotary hammer into the front of it. This vacuum will turn on when you engage that hammer. So you can run multiple tools off of one outlet, and you can set this to where I only want it running when I turn on that corded hammer. It doesn't matter which brand it is. So that way you can run it off the front here too. So, yep. Go ahead. I already did that one. And then those are just some pictures. So of the different applications, everything being used, your grinding attachments, your hammer vac attachment, your M12 that really works on anything, your shroud there, and then some of your SDS. Your hollow bit might not be on this picture slide, but I know there's questions. What questions do you guys have that we can provide some feedback on? So, sure.
Is it only the drill attachment that's a universal fit, or are there other components that you make with guards and shrouds, like specifically for the grinders and that sort of thing?
So these are universal as well. These will fit on any brand grinder out there as well. So both of these shrouds, the cutting shroud that we had up there a second ago, I think it's right here. Excuse me. This will fit on, this is a universal attachment as well for cutting. And then the 5261DE, this one here, is also universal. So if you have any existing vacuums or you're using any dust extractors, you can buy these. These are like $70, something like that. You hook it onto your vacuum, run your bit through here, and you're good to go.
It can be ran on any shop vac or...
It can, but if your shop vac doesn't have a filter cleaning deal, it's not table 1. That's, there's a lot of, Milwaukee really slaps our wrists when we call this a vacuum. They're like, it's not a vacuum. But yes, you're controlling the dust, but I can't say that OSHA won't say, hey, do you have documentation that that's compliant? So, but.
I was gonna throw a number out there, say you pay $70 for that grinder attachment, considering it's plastic, do you have cases that go with it to protect it from getting damaged? Because after it cracks, it's no longer any good.
Sure.
Control of the silicone.
Yeah, these are sold in like a cardboard deal. Now you can buy our grinders with these packed in, and they do come in either cases or bags. So I think moving forward, if you're a tuck pointer, you're doing a lot of surface grinding, and you need to be dustless, your best bet's to buy these with them packed in, and then you would have your case or your bag to store it to make sure you're covered there. So, yep.
Vacuum only electric, or is it, can you get one that's battery powered also?
Being Milwaukee, you'd think we'd try to launch it with cordless, with some 9 amp hour batteries. I'm not saying that something might be coming like that.
Right.
Maybe some backpack vacuums or some different things, cool things that are coming. We're looking into a lot of it, but this one currently, and most of your units out there are corded, just because of the run time is going to be your biggest factor. So, yep.
The suction cup works well on, on block and brick
Yeah.
with the mortar joints.
Yep. Yep. I've done a lot of demos and things with it. I mean, I'm not on a job doing this type of stuff, but we've had really good feedback on the units that we've already sold as well. So, yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Is that the vacuum on the end too?
Oh, on the very end, that's just a light. Yeah, just a cool light we figure we bring in and show you. I don't know if it's got batteries in it, but it does. It's really to kind of go after the wobble light market. It's cordless and it's 1 key. So, I'll show you guys this real quick. Kind of segue it into the last piece of what we got here for you. So, is anybody familiar with 1 key? Have you heard any rumblings about Milwaukee 1 key? No? Okay, so I can control this light from my phone. Lighting like this, there's a lot of reluctancy in the industry because we'd all like these on the campsite or in the boat or something like that, right? So we've been forward thinking. We have what's called 1 key on all of our tools, a lot of our tools and a lot of our lighting now. But Milwaukee has an app that's free. It's an inventory management app, plus it's a tool control app that you can inventory anything you want. You can also control all of your tools through our app. So I can walk onto a job site in the morning, have all these linked up through Bluetooth, and just hit a button and turn on all my lights on my job. Cool thing about these two is I can plug them in, daisy chain them together off of one outlet. There's an input and an output, and then I can even go as down as adjusting the brightness and all those types of things. But the final piece of One Key is I can actually physically see where this tool is. So if I want to, I can click on my satellite map here. I'll pass my phone around for you guys. But you can see that light is here at Columbia Safety GME. So wherever the little red dot is, we use Bluetooth technology. So our drills, our impacts, our lights, we're starting to integrate a lot of this Bluetooth technology onto it. It's got a little pinger in there, and anytime anybody with our app comes within 300 feet of that tool, it's going to ping the phone and let you know where it is. So not quite GPS, but it's getting there. So
What's the distance? So on the One Key stuff,
Yep.
the little pucks that you sell too.
Yep, sure.
If I'm in a shop 2 miles from here, will it do the same thing?
Yeah, so we're totally reliant on the app. What do we all carry around? Smartphones, right? I see them all on the table. So what do your smartphones have in them? GPS, right? So you're driving down 70 and you see the MoDOT signs that say 20 minutes to I-64. It's all electronic. You know how they're doing that? A lot of them nowadays are actually, as you drive past that sign, they're pinging off your phone and it's recording how long it's taking you to get from point A to point B. So that's how they're determining traffic patterns and things like that. You don't even know it, right? We're doing the same thing with our tools. Anybody in the world that has our app, if they drive past your shop or a job that has one of your One Key tools on it, that tool is going to ping off of their phone and it's going to update your app's location. So you might have a job in Florida, you send some One Key tools down there, Joe Schmo that lives in Florida drives past the job site, you'll be able to check the last time it pinged off of somebody's phone.
So you can drive by a pawn shop, find your stolen tools.
You know, it's funny you say that because that was an example we were using. We had a local contractor in St. Louis. They had 10 drill and impacts stolen off a job that were One Key, and a week later they found them at the Fenton pawn shop, and they found 4 of them, but they pinged because they marked them missing. So, you know, if a tool gets stolen, you can also disable it. So I can disable that light and make it not work the next time it pings. So I can turn your drill off and make sure it's a brick. And the only way to turn it back on is if it comes and cycles back through my app. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'm smarter than you. I'm going to send it to Milwaukee e-Service. Well, what do? Well, obviously we can see whose inventory it's in and send the tool back to them. So some cool things coming.
Does it have to have a battery?
Good question. One Key is physically built into all of the tools. It's got its own little watch battery in there. So no, it doesn't need to have a battery on it. But if it has a battery on it, it's going to be pinging, it's going to be pulling from this battery source. So
So it's like a rechargeable
right.
battery.
So you guys have any other questions before we go up? We can take some of this stuff out and let you guys see what we're doing.